Okay, do you know how much? Remember?
46.
Okay.
I don't know. He said funny.
That's the writing in. Aiden, you knew. I know, I'm sorry. Aiden knew it, but Aiden, remember, you got spent up. All right, so Noble's spent up and Aiden is spent up. Noble, what happened here?
The Romans gave Judas the money to betray Jesus. And basically, later on they told him that he was going to go free Jesus, and then they were going to come and capture him.
Okay. Alex, head up. Reese, head up. I got any other heads down? All right, heads up, guys. Tune in with us. This gets really good. There's some things I want you to know. Noble, why did Judas do this?
Because he cared about the money more than he cared about Jesus.
Okay. Guys, listen to me. Hear my heart on this. As a Bible teacher, as a pastor, as a youth pastor, if you're not careful, when you're unsuccessful of convincing students to walk with Christ, because you've forgotten that that's something that God does, it's not something you do, and you feel like a failure because I did my best job teaching apologetics, I did my best job preaching the gospel, I did my best job trying to lead students to understand the authority of God's word and to live inside that authority. I did my best job, and I still got all these students that don't want to do that. I'm a complete failure. I'm a washout as an influence, as a leader, as a teacher. Satan will do that. It's happened to me many times. You kind of take it personally. It's not anything we're upset with you about. We're upset with ourselves because we feel like we didn't lead you well. And then I remember, this guy was with him all 3 years. John says if we wrote down everything Jesus said and did, there wouldn't be enough books to contain it all. How much teaching did Judas receive? How much wisdom could he have had if he had done what for those 3 years? If he listened. If he had paid attention. Now, we know Peter messed up even after Jesus was arrested. We know they all ran, so you could say that all of them had trouble listening. All of them struggled. That's true at some level, but what Judas did is very distinct. The rest of them would not do that. They had enough regard for him. They had enough faith in him that they weren't going to betray him, even though they were confused at the end. They didn't really come into their own until he resurrected, right? But Judas, guys, listen, he didn't. He was there. He had every opportunity. He was with, like, today you're with me. You're with Pastor G. You're with Mr. O'Day. You're with whatever pastors, youth pastors, Bible teachers you have. We're not Jesus. But we are the messengers God puts in your life to try to lead you in his way. That Judas was with him. It doesn't get any better than that. And at the end of 3 years, that's what he decided to do. And it just reminds me, don't take it so personally. And when we should take it seriously because we want to teach you well. But don't take it so personally because even those who were with him, even one that was with him, completely didn't buy in. Now, how did he feel after he did this, Noble?
He killed himself.
Took his own life. Why did he do that? He knew, it's like all of us. This is an intrinsic morality thing. Something in Judas, even though he didn't ascribe to everything Jesus taught, or he just didn't pay attention, something in the recesses of his morality knew this is wrong, that I shouldn't have done this. And it cut him so hard to the quick that he took his own life. So I guess the lesson that I want you guys to get from that is when you have opportunity to listen and grow, don't miss it. Because we could end up living lives that are a complete betrayal of the one who came and did everything for us, right? That's the danger of not listening and not caring, being checked out. All right, the next one is the what? Gabe, what is the significance of the cup? Last Supper, Lord's Supper. But what specifically the cup? Hang on, Rob. I'll let you do the next one, okay, Rob? All right. Yeah. Yes. Say that again. Okay. And so the wine was representative of his blood that does what? Without the shedding of blood, you guys know this one? Without the shedding of blood, there is no what? There is no remission for sins. There's no forgiveness for sins. This was the required in the Old Testament through animals, the spotless lamb. That's why Jesus is referred to as the what of God? The Lamb of God, right? He's the once and for all sacrifice. He's the one, you don't have to go back and kill animals anymore. They never did that again after Christ, okay? Not Christian Jews. They were like, we have the sacrifice because he shed that blood. And then the bread was what? The bread was the body that was broken, okay? So, the significance, like Gabe said, that's all in the blood. It should have been ours, but he did that for us. And here's the thing, really get this, okay? Why couldn't it be mine? Why couldn't it be Mary's? Why couldn't it be Paul's? Why couldn't it be Billy Graham's blood?
They weren't perfect. They weren't perfect.
Were you going to say add to that, Aiden?
Yes, sir. I was going to say they're all humans. They all sin. So it has to be a perfect person.
Okay, you guys hear what Andrew and Aiden are saying?
Yeah.
The only blood that would satisfy the requirement for our sin of all time, had to be spotless blood without sin. The only way a human being can shed that kind of blood is for that human being to be what? And how can a human being be perfect?
God. Jesus.
He'd have to be God in the flesh. Makes complete sense. Completely logical. You can write it off as a fairy tale or a nice story, but it's supported by history that this happened. We've already been through all that. Very good. All right. The next one up. So there's the blood and the bread. Rob, tell us about what's this?
Was he like playing in the garden?
Good. Y'all give it up for Rob. Nailed it. Now, Rob, see if you can help me out. In the garden, he prayed. He was nervous about going to the cross. Okay? He was stressed about it. He was so stressed that the first blood he shed was where? In sweating blood in the garden. A lot of people say he started bleeding when they beat him in the praetorium. No, he started bleeding when he sweat in the garden. Okay? Rob, in the midst of that stress, he said, hey, if there's some other way to do this, let's do that. But then he said something, not my
will, but yours.
Good, Rob, good. Not my will, but your will be done. Now, guys, I think about that every time I'm making choices. And this happens to me all the time still as an almost 50-year-old Christian man. I still want to do things that I know in my rational mind are outside the will of God. I still want to. Okay, that's my sin nature. And that helps me every time. Not my will, but yours. I don't know what's best, but you do. I trust you, and I'm going to deny myself that thing because I know that the consequences of not denying myself are not going to go well, but I know that when I stay with you, it does go well. Okay? And you say, well, what about all the Christians that got arrested and imprisoned and got martyred for their faith? Guys, that's still going well. You're still going to be with God for eternity, and you haven't done anything that you regretted, even if they persecute you as a Christian. I'm talking about I caved into that familiar sin. I caved into it because I wanted my will instead of his, and I incurred all the consequences that came with it. I caved into it because that's what I wanted to do. That was his failure. And look what he did to himself. He was so devastated by the choice he made to do his own will instead of God's. It happens to us a lot here. So we think about not my will, but his will. This is one of my favorite paintings of that situation because I don't think it was one of these, standard. I think it was face to the ground, sweat and blood. It was hard. What he's about to do, understand, is take the sin of all men, of all time, onto his shoulders for one moment of time. And he's about to feel separation from his Father, which he's never felt since eternity past. And he's feeling that anxiety. You guys have stress. I don't discount that, and I don't diminish that. I have stress. You have stress. We've never had that we've never even come close to having that kind of stress. Nobody ever will. And so that's the praying hands. All right. Matt, can you tell me, Matt Ludlam, can you tell me about this one? Okay. What is it? Do you know what it was called? Flagrum? Flagrum. And also called, Aiden, I know you know it, because you told it to me earlier. Think of an animal.
A goat.
A pet. A pet a lot of people have.
Snake.
Not a dog.
A cat.
Cat?
Goldfish.
Good, Megan. What is it, Megan? Cat of nine tails. Why nine tails?
Is that not good?
Yep, I think they have them in there. And Matt, do you remember what it was laced with at the end? Bone and sheep and metal. Bone and metal. So we did all that when we were doing apologetics and we did the crucifixion. We talked about how it went from the top of his spinal column all the way down through to his lower backside, and it just ripped off the flesh and everything. And so that was the beating, by the Romans and everything. Passion of the Christ depicts that very graphically. That's not historically. People talk about myth. People say these things didn't happen. That's not a stretch. They did this to prisoners all the time. This happened to him, and it happened more brutally to him because for some reason, and I really think the devil had a lot to do with this, a spirit moved through the crowd that was just saying, this guy needs to suffer. He needs to suffer for leading the people to believe that he was the king of the Jews. He's become a threat to Rome's political position. He's become a problem for his own people because he's inciting an uproar among them. We just need to make an example of this guy. So the Romans were in on it. The Jews were in on it. And it was worse for Jesus than it should have been. That cat of nine tails is brutal. Okay? But that's where a lot of his blood was shed. Andrew?
For Peter,
Okay.
denying his Lord 3 times.
Okay.
And later repenting.
Okay. Did you guys hear Andrew?
Oh, it is a wisdom. Oh,
So
I didn't know what the.
Peter and Judas, similar but different. Both were with him the whole time. Both had the opportunity to learn and grow from his teachings. I think Judas often was focused more on temporary things like money, but Peter was really soaking this in. We see Peter have some great, incredible victory. Peter was the first one to say, Jesus, you're the Messiah. He was the first one to say that. And Jesus said, blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah. He changed his name from Simon to Petros, to Peter, which is rock, because on this rock I'll build my church. On this confession that I am the Messiah, the Son of the living God, I'll build my church. And the church is still here. A lot of you guys went to church on Sunday. A lot of you are going this Sunday to celebrate Easter. That had a lot to do with what Peter said. The confession, the realization Peter had, we're not leaving, Lord. You've got the words of eternal life. Who do you say that I am? Well, some people say Elijah. Some people say, prophet. Who do you say that I am? Peter said, you're the Christ. So he understood that. And then Peter had some really dumb moments. He had bad moments where Jesus would say, I gotta die. And Peter would say, no, you're not gonna die. We know how Peter acted. He cut the servant's ear, right? He said, get behind me, Satan. You're not thinking about the things of God, but you're thinking about the things of men. So Jesus was working with Peter. Jesus was shaping and molding Peter. And Peter loved Jesus tremendously, but Peter got afraid. Students, listen to me. It's from the heart, okay? It happens to you all the time. It happens to you all the time. And it will continue to happen to you in college and university, and it will continue to happen to you in life, that you'll be surrounded by a culture, by a group thing, by crowd mentality, by a society. You'll be surrounded by people who don't buy into this. And you'll feel the pressure, not necessarily to go against it, but you'll feel the pressure to say nothing and to do nothing and to almost outwardly deny it because I don't want to deal with the backlash. A lot of Christians today, pastors that I used to really respect, books of theirs that I read, are backpedaling to this social agenda nonsense. And saying and agreeing with things that are completely not biblical. And I'm like, what are you guys doing? When did you deviate from the Word of God as truth? Why are you trying to please people instead of pleasing God? And that happened to him. You were with him. You were one of his disciples. No. Because they'll drag me away. They'll hurt me. They'll say bad things about me. Maybe they'll kill me. And then the rooster crowed, because Jesus had predicted this. And what was Peter's response?
No.
Didn't kill himself like Judas, but boy, you talk about a broken man. I didn't do what I knew was right. I caved into the pressure of this society. And guys, on the other side of caving in to the wrong thing because you were afraid, on the other side of bending the knee to a lie because you were afraid, is exactly that. And I've been there. I've been guilty of it too. There are times when I could have spoke up, said something, did something that I didn't. Paul said that, right? I don't do what I want to do sometimes. And wept bitterly because, Lord, I missed a tremendous opportunity. I could have stood up for you and I didn't because reasons. Sometimes it's just, I'm tired of fighting about it. I don't want to incur the backlash. I'm just not going to say anything. And if we do that, evil will hold sway over the world. That's revelatory. I don't know if you guys know that. That the love of people will wax cold towards God. That people will become lovers of themselves and lovers of money and not lovers of what is good. And a lot of that will be people who identified as Christian who just said, you know what? I'm not going to do anything. I don't want the hassle. Okay? Peter got caught up in that, and it was probably his worst moment. But because Peter hung in there, and he saw the risen Christ, and he wanted to be forgiven, he was forgiven, he was reinstated, and he became one of the greatest apostles of the church. And he was crucified upside down as a martyr because he didn't want to be crucified the same way Christ was. Peter went out strong, though, because he hung in there. Hey, hang in there. Hang in there. It's going to get rough in your days, in your culture, in your lifetime. I'm the old guard. I'm on the way out, okay? We're still fighting the good fight, and I will till I'm 60, 70, 80, however long God allows me to be here. I'll teach apologetics, and I'll fight the good fight, and I'll stand up for the Lord, and I'll speak out against things that are wrong. You guys are the next generation, though. You guys are stronger than us. You can make a tremendous difference, and it's going to be harder for you to live Christian than it was for us, because Christianity is under attack and persecution again, like it was in the days of old. People are starting to see Christianity as a threat to the lifestyles they want to live, and they want to diminish it. Okay? There's a lot of talk about inclusion and diversity, but where's the inclusion and diversity for the Christian opinions and for the Christian belief? We've got to start asking that question. Okay? All right, good job on that. All right, next one up is, how about, all right, Emma, what is it?
The rooster?
Andrew did the rooster. You got to do this one.
Oh, is that the crown of thorns?
Crown of thorns.
Put on Jesus and then they nailed it to his head.
Okay. Yes, you may.
No, let me go next.
Sir?
I just want to go next.
Okay. You want to do the next one?
Yeah.
Okay. Emma, what's significant about that?
Because they put it on Jesus' head when he got crucified, so it wasn't just him dying, it was spiritual.
And earlier we said, what kind of king they think he was going to be?
They're going to show on, gallant, show off.
Political, military.
Yeah.
So they think he was going to wear a crown?
No. I mean, yes, but not a crown.
What kind of crown were they looking for?
Gold.
What kind of crown did he get? Would the gold crown have fulfilled Isaiah's prophecy?
No.
Did this crown fulfill Isaiah's prophecy?
Yes.
Because what did Isaiah say? He would be what kind of king?
Humble?
And suffering. Suffering. That device, okay, and they didn't do this to other prisoners because the whole accusation of Jesus is he's a false king. Okay? Alex! Get him. Alex, head up. All right. You got any more sleepers? All right. Guys, I chose this picture because that's probably fairly accurate. It didn't just sit on his head like you see in some pictures in movies. It literally went into the bones of his skull. And so just from that alone, he would have bled out quite a bit. Okay? Because they knocked it down with that reed, that stick. It's like hammering a nail in. That's how they put it into his skull. And the irony is they were mocking him as a king when in reality, what?
He was.
King of all creation, the king of everything, right? So that's the significance of the crown. All right, Mason.
First of all, it's a cross, and then my teammate Devin's going to explain to you what it is.
Okay. Did you do that to him intentionally?
No.
Okay.
He asked me to do it for him.
All right, so it is a cross, and what's the significance about the way this one's made? I guess Devin's telling us.
It's made out of nails.
Okay. What, Devin? Okay. Yeah, go ahead, Rob. Yes, Mason.
Can I do the next one?
Yeah, you can. Let's talk about this one a little bit more. Do you guys know how that was done? We talked about this in apologetics. Just see if you remember. Where'd they go?
To Jesus.
Yeah, you see a lot of pictures of this, don't you?
Yeah.
That's historically inaccurate. It's here. And the wording of the Bible would have said hand, would have been talking about all of that region, okay? So it would have gone here, and the metatarsals on your feet, those are these bones right here, would have gone on through those on the feet.
Show me your toes.
And that was done so that the prisoner would suffer to the full extent, so that they could actually, with the little strength they had, they could pull up to inhale and actually speak and suffer longer before they broke their bones to kill them, so that the people watching would see the suffering and they would say, ooh, I don't want to be a criminal, because look what they do to criminals. That was the whole Roman system of punishment, and that's what Jesus went through. So probably this wasn't there. We see that a lot. It was probably looked like a capital T. I can tell you one thing, there weren't any advantages for him. And even when they offered him a pain-inducing drug, did he take it?
No.
He went to the full extent. Why?
Because.
Sin deserves pain.
Because that's what we require. I have to do for them what they can't do. I can't take any advantages. I can't take any helps. I got to go through the full punishment so that they won't have to. That's what that was all about on the cross. Okay? All right. Macy wanted to do here.
It's the thingy they poked him with after he died.
The thingy.
The thingy.
Also called a...
Spear.
Nice. And what's the significance of that, Macy? This is a prophecy fulfillment. Two things came out. Water and blood. Okay? Which medical doctors say would happen if a person was what? Well, not asphyxiated. Already, yeah, they had already passed. Okay? He didn't die. A lot of prisoners died of asphyxia. The reason we know Jesus didn't is because he did what right before he died?
One of the best lines in the Bible, it is finished.
You can't talk if you can't breathe, and you can't breathe if you're asphyxiated. You guys with me? The last thing he did, it is finished, and then what? And then they came through, they were going to break his bones. That's what they did. If they weren't sure if they were dead or not, or if they weren't dead, they'd break their bones. Then they can't pull up, then they can't breathe, then they die of suffocation. Okay? Prophecy says, what about breaking his bones? No bone of his body will be broken. That's Old Testament. That's 600 years before the advent of Christ. One of many specifically fulfilled prophecies that came true right here. Okay? They pierced his side. The blood and water came out. This guy's already dead. Don't need to break his bones. Don't need to suffocate him. All a fulfillment of prophecy. Okay? Very good. All right. Anybody want it? Rob, you already got to go. All right, Bradley. The what? No, that's a great guess, though. What's significant about the curtain in the temple? When he said it was finished and the earth shook and the sky went dark, what happened to that curtain? And the curtain represented what? Curtain represented only the high priest can go in there and pray for you. The curtain ripped in half to show us what? You can pray wherever you are because Jesus has become the high priest. So that's really good, Bradley. This actually represents another cloth, though, that is significant. Does anybody want to grab it? So he died, then what did they do with him? Hayden,
The burial cloth.
burial cloth. What's significant about it?
It had, when he was in the tomb, it was laid over him. You could see that, like in the case of Christ, you could see it had the imprint of his face on it.
Which is called?
I just know it's called the burial cloth.
It's called the Shroud of Turin.
Yeah.
It's speculative, but it's pretty cool if it's real. And that was something that grabbed Strobel's attention in that movie. He literally felt like Christ was looking at him because of the imprint. They would have put a lot of spices. They would have put oils, so the face would have been moist with those, and the cloth would have made that imprint. So it's very probable that that is the shroud that covered Jesus' face in the burial. But the most significant thing about the burial cloth, anybody? Well, look at that picture. They were in there.
It was undone.
Yeah, it was undone. And they were in there, but what?
He wasn't.
He was not. Right? Right? Clear indication that he woke up, he rose up, took all of that off, walked out of the tomb. Very good. We're speeding up just a little bit.
I got it.
Who's got it?
I got it.
You already got to go.
You already got to go.
What if you
I got it.
What?
I got it.
You got it?
Yeah.
All right, Delaney, I'm gonna let you do the last one, okay?
I got it.
All right, go ahead, Hargrove.
That's the rock in front of the tomb.
Okay, Hargrove, how much did the stone in front of the tomb weigh?
I'm gonna pass it to Mason now.
All right.
I already went though. Actually.
All right, who knows what it weighed? Free for all. Huh? 8,000 pounds.
24 times.
How much is a ton?
Like
2,000
2,000 pounds or something.
2,000.
It's 2 tons,
It was like,
4,000.
so 4,000 pounds. So close.
so it was like 3 tons.
Gabe, how many men does it take to move a 2-ton stone?
Stone?
Yeah. How many men would it take to move a 2-ton rock?
The strongest person, probably 2.
Really?
It would take 2 games.
Alright, yeah, 2 games.
Do you guys think Jesus' disciples all together were strong enough to move that?
Gabe could by himself.
Yeah, right. Historians say about the stone,
What is that like?
and this is a
It just said,
this is a place in Jerusalem. There's several of those, just to give you a picture, an idea. It would have looked something like that. You're not going to move that thing without a significant number of people and probably a fulcrum or some kind of device, which could not have happened. Why? What was going on right here? Who was out there? Guards, who would not have fallen asleep unless something supernatural happened, because they would have died. And even if they weren't there, it's highly unlikely they could have moved that thing. So the rolling away of the stone is very significant in that it had to be an act of God, because the circumstances of the time historically don't really allow for it to logically be anything else. All of the attempts to explain that, his disciples did it, for whatever weird reason, the Romans, I've heard all kinds of theories, but none of them really make sense, and none of them add up to the recording of the historical event of that time. So the stone rolling away is very significant. All right, Delaney, last one. Which is why this egg is what? It's not there. Okay, not there. Now, guys, let me ask you. And I want you to be honest with me. I want an honest answer. I know what I think most of you, I think most of you agree with me. But if you don't, I want to hear it right now. Okay? Is that the most significant event in history?
no.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Does anybody think there's a more significant event? Like, and I'm speaking in terms of, if it's true, we have every historical reason to believe that it's true. There's never been any evidence presented to indicate that it's not true. Okay, so in terms of that, Briley.
Is it because he appeared to 3 women and women didn't really have?
Oh, that's huge. Like, the fact that they recorded that it was the women who went to the tomb and the angel said he's not here, he's risen. They wouldn't have done that if they were writing a story or a myth, or if they were trying to propagandize a religion. They wouldn't have put the women in there. But yeah, that is, Briley's right, that's significant. But just the fact that it happened, okay? There isn't really anything else. If it's true, there isn't anything else that comes close. And it's good that we have this time of year. There's, I don't know if the Easter Bunny's coming or not. Maybe he's coming. We got all this.
He is wrong.
Yeah.
When you guys were little, my mom would hide the baskets and we'd get up on Easter and we'd find them before church. Did y'all do that?
No, my mom would give me.
Easter wasn't big.
Listen, I love the Easter festivities. I love the colors. I love the weather. I love the Easter Bunny. I still love to dye eggs, right? But we all know that this time of year, two very significant times a year, one to celebrate his birth, one to celebrate his death and resurrection, we all know that exists as a point of remembrance. To not let the magnitude of this event be lost on this, that this was the most significant event in history, and not just that, it's the most significant event in the life of a person who trusts that. Okay? So I'm going to give an assignment out in just a second that I think will be very important to this remembrance. Okay? We're going to talk about testimonies in just a minute. Hey, you guys have been great today. You